I never thought a simple party could unravel so much tension, but that night proved me wrong. It was my cousin's annual gathering, a casual celebration with close friends and family, the kind of event where laughter mingles with a little gossip, and everyone tries to impress, even if subtly. I had gone there expecting nothing more than some light-hearted chatter, and maybe a couple of drinks, but life has a funny way of throwing surprises when you least expect them. My wife Emily was her usual charming self, gliding through the crowd with that easy smile that used to make my heart skip a beat. But there was something different tonight. A trace of mischief in her eyes, like she had rehearsed a little joke in advance. I stayed on the sidelines, nursing my drink, watching her interact, noting the little quirks that had drawn me to her years ago. Then, almost casually, she leaned toward a group of our mutual friends and said, "Choosing him over my ex was my biggest mistake." I froze for a moment. The words lingered in the air, sharp and deliberate. I could see the smirk she tried to hide, the slight tilt of her head that implied she expected a reaction. Around her, laughter rippled softly, half genuine, half awkward. I realized then that this wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was a setup, the kind of moment where everyone's attention would inevitably turn toward me. But I didn't react the way she probably anticipated. I didn't frown. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I calmly sipped my drink, waited for the right beat, and said, "Trust me, I feel the same." The room went silent for just a second, long enough for the impact to settle. Emily's eyes widened ever so slightly, a flicker of surprise passing through them. She had expected shock, maybe even a tinge of hurt or anger, but what she got was calm, unwavering, measured. It was subtle, but the contrast between her expectation and my response hung heavy in the room. For a moment, I let her digest it. The laughter around us had paused, replaced by curious glances. I noticed how people leaned in, drawn by the tension, as if they were reading a live drama unfold. I could feel her pulse shift slightly, the energy between us changing. There was a thin line between embarrassment and realization, and tonight, she was teetering on it. Her smile faltered just a little, the playful facade slipping for a fraction of a second. I could see the calculation in her eyes now, wondering if I was serious or merely teasing back. But I wasn't teasing. Every word I had said carried the weight of truth. Over the years, I had learned to measure my responses, especially when emotions ran high. And tonight, the lesson was clear. Control the moment or it controls you. Emily tried to recover quickly, letting out a soft laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, come on," she said, brushing it off as if she hadn't just delivered a bombshell. But the subtle tremor in her voice betrayed her. She was used to having the upper hand, to leading with wit and charm, to making others squirm with just a clever line. Tonight, however, the tables had turned in silence. I took a slow sip of my drink, keeping my gaze steady. Inside, I felt a quiet satisfaction, not from gloating but from clarity. In our relationship, honesty had always been a fragile thing, often masked by politeness or fear. Tonight it was laid bare. The truth of our shared past, of choices and regrets, had collided in that single exchange. And in that collision I realized just how much power words could hold, even when delivered with calm. Around us, conversations continued, but the energy had shifted. Friends whispered, exchanged glances, but no one interrupted. It was as if the room collectively acknowledged the unspoken tension, recognizing that this was not ordinary small talk. I noticed how she glanced at me occasionally, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. She had thrown the words out there expecting a reaction, maybe even discomfort. What she didn't expect was composure, a mirror reflecting her own audacity back at her. As the evening wore on, I observed her more closely than ever. There were fleeting moments, a subtle sigh, a pause before answering a question, a glance that lingered longer than usual. All these small signals told me she was reconsidering the narrative she had so confidently announced. The woman who had tried to play a joke in public was now quietly evaluating the impact of her words. And I, in that calm, silent observation, understood a simple truth. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all, letting the weight of reality speak louder than any retort could. By the time the party was winding down, the playful energy had dimmed, replaced by a quiet tension that neither of us acknowledged outright. Yet, beneath the surface, a subtle shift had occurred. The game of words, jokes, and past regrets had changed its rules, and for the first time in a long while, I felt an unusual sense of balance between us. Not one of dominance but of understanding who truly held the measure of truth in their hands. The ride home was quiet, a contrast to the subtle storm that had brewed at the party. Emily sat beside me trying to seem casual, but her hands fidgeted with the edge of her purse, betraying the tension she tried to hide. I didn't comment. I didn't need to. The silence itself was a conversation, a reflection of the evening's events. Sometimes the absence of words speaks louder than any explanation could. Later at home, the remnants of the party lingered in my mind. I replayed her words over and over, not out of anger but curiosity. What prompted her to bring up the past in such a public way? Was it carelessness, a need for attention, or an unconscious admission of regret? I didn't need to answer immediately. Some truths reveal themselves over time, like shadows lengthening as the sun sets. Over the next few days I watched her closely, not with suspicion but with awareness. Subtle gestures, fleeting expressions, the way she paused before speaking, all became small indicators of a deeper conversation that had yet to happen. And in these moments I realized that our relationship was a tapestry of choices, each thread representing a decision, a word, or a silent act of honesty. Her joke at the party, though public and pointed, was just another thread. How we chose to respond would determine the strength and texture of the entire weave. Finally, the conversation came naturally, in the calm of our living room one evening. No audience, no laughter, no pressure, just the two of us. Emily sighed, a soft sound that carried months of unspoken thoughts. I guess I didn't think it would come across the way it did, she admitted, her voice almost fragile. I nodded, not with judgment but with understanding. Sometimes we say things we don't fully mean or we mask what we do mean in jest, I said. But truth has a way of revealing itself, even through jokes. In that moment a quiet shift occurred between us. No grand declarations, no dramatic apologies, just recognition. We had confronted a lingering tension, not through argument, but through measured composure and observation. It was a subtle victory, one that spoke more about maturity than dominance, about clarity over chaos. The evening at the party was no longer a source of embarrassment or regret. It became a turning point, a reminder of the power of calm, measured truth in the midst of emotional turbulence. And as we moved forward, I realized that relationships are never about who wins a single moment, but about who understands the weight of words, the significance of choices, and the quiet strength it takes to respond with honesty, patience, and above all, composure. That night at the party, we didn't just share a laugh or a joke. We confronted the past, acknowledged the present, and silently set the stage for a future built on understanding rather than theatrics.